The film begins with a scene where a woman named Ji-sung is showing off her new invention at work. She's a programmer and the research and development manager at Pelican Electronics. She's created a smart refrigerator named Jangu that uses artificial intelligence, or AI, to provide personal information to its users. Ji-sung demonstrates how Jangu works. However, when Ji-sung tries to show Jangu in action, it doesn't work properly. Despite this glitch, everyone at the presentation supports her and encourages her to keep improving the invention. Later, Ji-sung goes to see her friend and co-worker, Tae-yoon. While she's there, another friend, Yesul, shows up. Ji-sung has a boyfriend named Chong-hun, who is a dentist. They are planning to get married soon, but because they are both so busy, they mainly talk about their wedding plans through messages. In another part of the story, we meet a man named Jungkook. One day, he sees a car accident and rushes to help the injured person. Soon after, an ambulance arrives. At that time, Jungkook, who is a firefighter, introduces himself to the others there. Later, he runs into his friend Oh-jung at the gym. There, Oh-jung wonders why Jungkook hadn't answered his text. Jungkook explains that he was busy helping at the accident site. Then, Oh-jung suggests that Jungkook should download WhatsApp to stay in touch more easily, but Jungkook prefers just texting. Meanwhile, Ji-sung is working hard to fix Jangu, which wasn't working properly. Frustrated, she kicks Jangu, but this only causes it to short-circuit and start a small fire. Panicking, she quickly calls the fire department. Shortly after, Jungkook gets the call from Ji-sung and rushes to the scene. While waiting for the firefighters, Ji-sung tries to put out the fire herself using a fire extinguisher. However, she accidentally sprays herself in the face instead. At that moment, a mysterious woman named Wang shows up. Wang is known around Ji-sung's workplace, but nobody really knows what her job is or what she does there. She always seems to appear whenever something unusual happens. Shortly after Wang arrived, Jungkook showed up and they managed to put out the fire. Ji-sung was frustrated because she didn't know how to use a fire extinguisher properly. Jungkook tried to show her how to use it, but ended up getting sprayed in the face himself. Ji-sung felt embarrassed and said sorry, but Jungkook wasn't upset. Meanwhile, Ji-sung was working on fixing Jangu. While she was getting new parts for it, Chong-hun came by. He was a bit upset because Ji-sung hadn't been responding to his messages. There, Chong-hun invited her to a dentist meeting at his university the next day, and Ji-sung promised she would be there and apologized for missing his texts. While Ji-sung and Chong-hun were talking, the chip in Jangu suddenly turned on. Ji-sung went back to work on it, and as a test, she entered her manager Byung-gil's personal information into Jangu. To her surprise, Jangu started working exactly how she wanted, but it also started showing personal details about Byung-gil that it shouldn't have known. Like his use of the company credit card for personal things. Ji-sung was confused and worried that Jangu was accessing private information by mistake. Soon after, Ji-sung tried again, this time with information about her friend Dong-jin. Unfortunately, the same thing happened. At that time, Jangu leaked Dong-jin's personal data too. Ji-sung was really surprised and started wondering why Jangu was able to access such private information when she never designed it to do that. The next day, Ji-sung was called into Byung-gil's office. He scolded her for the trouble the night before. But during the conversation, Ji-sung brought up Byung-gil's activities and hinted at his misuse of the company credit card. Upon hearing that, Byung-gil panicked and couldn't deny it. After Ji-sung left, Byung-gil was puzzled about how Ji-sung knew about his actions. His assistant named Jae-gal was also worried because he had been involved too. Then, Jae-gal advised Byung-gil to avoid troubling Ji-sung for a while so she wouldn't expose their misdeeds. Back at the office, Yesul approached Ji-sung, asking to borrow money for her boyfriend's business. As they talked, Yesul spoke a bit loudly, and her words were picked up by Jangu. The smart refrigerator ended up revealing that Yesul's boyfriend was a scammer who had tricked many people. Realizing that Jangu could reveal secrets just by hearing someone's name, Ji-sung suspected her friend might be getting scammed. Soon after, she arranged to meet Yesul at a restaurant, where Jangu had indicated Yesul's boyfriend would be meeting another woman. Sure enough, Yesul's boyfriend showed up with another woman. There, Yesul confronted him and splashed juice on him in front of everyone after finding out he was cheating. After a busy day, Ji-sung accidentally ran into Chong-hun. She apologized for missing his event, but luckily, Chong-hun was understanding and didn't mind at all. Later that evening, Ji-sung hung out with Tae-yoon and Yesul. At that time, Tae-yoon asked Ji-sung how she knew Yesul would be at the restaurant with the other woman. Ji-sung joked that it was just a lucky guess, maybe a hint from her ancestors. They all chatted about various things for a while. Instead of going home after their conversation, Ji-sung decided to stay late at the office to work on Jangu. With nothing else to do, she entered Chonghan's personal data into Jangu. She was shocked when Jangu displayed messages from a chat group that included Chonghan and his friends. There, Ji-sung discovered that Chonghan had been secretly recording her with a CCTV camera in his room, even when she wasn't fully dressed. The recordings, including photos and videos, had been shared in the WhatsApp group. Ji-sung was heartbroken to find out that Chonghan had tricked her into installing the CCTV camera, saying it was for security. She was very upset and cried, feeling betrayed by Chonghan. A while back, Chonghan told Ji-sung that only she could access the CCTV camera. But it turned out he was lying. Ji-sung thought about telling the police, but she worried that it might embarrass her even more if her private moments became public. So, she decided to deal with Chonghan in her own way. One day, Ji-sung invited Chonghan over for drinks at her apartment. She suggested he take a shower while she got things ready. While Chonghan was in the shower, Ji-sung used the moment to express her anger and shared proof of what he had done on her WhatsApp group. During that time, she also took a photo of Chonghan while he was not dressed and warned him that if he ever shared any more photos of her, she would share his photo too. Right then, she decided to call off their engagement. Still upset, Ji-sung went straight to her office. She tried to delete the Jangu program from her system, but it wouldn't uninstall. Frustrated but hungry, she asked Jangu for a lunch recommendation. Despite everything, Jangu suggested a meal she'd never tried before. Interestingly, Jangu also displayed some of Ji-sung's personal data. It showed that she was a computer engineering graduate, an excellent student, and had always excelled in programming. Following Jangu's food suggestion, Ji-sung enjoyed a really tasty meal, which cheered her up as she ate heartily. At the same time, Jungkook happened to be at the same restaurant, enjoying the same meal as Ji-sung. When Ji-sung tried to pay for her food, she found out that the restaurant didn't accept credit cards, and she didn't have any cash with her, which made her worried. Luckily, Jungkook was also about to pay and offered to help. Ji-sung then realized that the man next to her was the firefighter she had called before. She asked Jungkook to lend her some money, promising to pay him back by transferring the money later. After they left the restaurant, Jungkook fed some stray cats. While doing this, he ran into a woman named Hari, who worked with Ji-sung at Pelican Electronic. Hari, who loves cats and is part of a well-known cat community, told Jungkook that he was quite popular in her community and even called him a very handsome firefighter. She invited him to join the community, but Jungkook wasn't interested, although he said he'd think about it. Later, Jungkook visited a shop that sold classic goods and chatted with the shopkeeper, who he knew well. He asked why the shop was closed the previous day. The shopkeeper explained that he had posted about the temporary closure on social media. Since Jungkook doesn't use social media, he hadn't seen the post, showing that he keeps his distance from social media platforms. Back to the story, the shopkeeper suggested to Jungkook that he should use social media to keep up with the latest news more easily. However, he wasn't interested at all and felt that social media was bad and not friendly. The scene then changes to Ji-sung, who looks really lost. Ever since she broke up with Chonghan, her life has been chaotic, almost as if she's just going through the motions without really living. She often daydreams while working and has started to frequently go out drinking with her friends. One night, after having too much to drink, Ji-sung tried to walk home alone to her apartment. Unfortunately, she was so drunk that she passed out on the side of the road. Luckily, Jungkook and Oh-jung, who were on patrol, found Ji-sung lying unconscious. They tried to help her, but Ji-sung suddenly started acting wildly and saying odd things. Then, they recorded what happened for documentation. During the confusion, Ji-sung grabbed Jungkook's hand, making him fall and spill everything from his bag. Afterwards, he took Ji-sung to his apartment to make sure she was safe. Late one night, Ji-sung was still passed out from drinking too much. Even in that state, she ended up sharing her recent troubles on a website. The next morning, she realized her phone had been switched with someone else's. Ji-sung didn't remember that Jungkook had helped her the night before. Then, she went to work. At the office entrance, she bumped into Jungkook again, who was holding a cat. Turns out, Ji-sung is allergic to cats, so she started sneezing. Because of her sneezing, Jungkook got distracted, and the cat he had been trying to catch for a month ran away. He had just managed to catch it, but now it was loose again. There, Ji-sung apologized, and Jungkook, being kind, didn't make a big deal about it. When Ji-sung got to her office, she noticed Byung-gil and Jae-gal trying to use Jangu. At that time Byung-gil, thinking Jangu was working better, planned to show it to their boss. Also, a mysterious woman named Wang joined Ji-sung's team that day, and Ji-sung welcomed her warmly. Later, Ji-sung told her co-workers that she had called off her marriage to Chung-hun but didn't share the real reason why. In the afternoon, Ji-sung was puzzled because no one had contacted her about the phone she had by mistake. Eventually, the phone's owner called and asked to meet. When they met, Ji-sung was shocked to find out that she had accidentally swapped phones with Jungkook. She was curious about how this happened, and Jungkook explained the events of the previous night, mentioning that Ji-sung had been acting oddly. After hearing this, Ji-sung felt embarrassed about how she had acted around Jungkook. When she checked her phone, she saw many messages and missed calls from Chung-hun. There, Jungkook asked if Chung-hun was her boyfriend, and Ji-sung clarified that he was no longer important to her. Once their conversation ended, Jungkook went to look for his cat that had escaped earlier. Feeling responsible, Ji-sung suggested using social media to organize a competition to find the cat. At that time, Jungkook was skeptical and pointed out that the cat was wild and hard to catch, doubting that social media would help. However, Ji-sung assured him that social media could work faster than he thought. Seeing that Jungkook was still doubtful, Ji-sung made a bet with him that if she could find his cat using social media, then Jungkook would have to have a meal with her. After finishing her previous task, Ji-sung decided to head back to her office. Before she left, she noticed that Jungkook's bicycle was broken. Having watched some YouTube tutorials, Ji-sung fixed the bicycle. In return, Jungkook gave her a ride back to the office on the newly repaired bike. When Ji-sung got to the office, she was upset by a rumor on social media claiming she broke up with her boyfriend because she was pregnant. There were also mean comments from people online. Ji-sung was sure that the rumor was spread by someone close to her. In the evening, Ji-sung thought about clearing up the rumor by sharing the real reason for her breakup. However, she decided against it because she was worried it would lead to more embarrassing situations, like people trying to find inappropriate photos of her. Later, Ji-sung chose to get rid of all the gifts she had received from Chung-hun by burning them. As she was doing this, she noticed some movement in the bushes. To her surprise, Jungkook came out, still searching for his lost cat. Since they were both not doing much, they ended up taking a walk together around the area. Before they parted ways, Ji-sung asked for Jungkook's phone number so she could contact him if she found his cat. The next day, it was time for Pelican Electronics' big presentation. Jae-gal was up first to showcase his new product, a vacuum cleaner with AI technology called Ultron. Ultron was similar to Jangu, but it was designed to vacuum dust. All the devices being presented were linked to the Jangu system. During his presentation, Jae-gal asked Ji-sung to activate Ultron, but Ji-sung accidentally called out Jangu's name instead, turning on Jangu. Luckily, nobody seemed to notice the mix-up. When Jae-gal shared some of his personal information to demonstrate Ultron, Jangu ended up capturing it and revealing all of Jae-gal's private secrets to everyone at the meeting. It turned out Jae-gal was behind a social media account named Venus Forest, which had spread false rumors about Ji-sung being pregnant out of wedlock. This revelation caused a big chaos at the meeting. Even though Jae-gal kept denying he was responsible for the gossip, no one wanted to listen to him. Overwhelmed and upset, Jae-gal lost his temper and slammed the microphone down. In the evening, Ji-sung was still curious about how much information Jangu could access. There, she tried to enter Jungkook's personal data into Jangu, but to her surprise, nothing about him came up. She was puzzled about why Jangu couldn't find any data on Jungkook. While waiting for the rain to stop, Ji-sung got a message from someone who had found the cat she was looking for in the park. She hurried to the park and was shocked and scared when she saw Jungkook holding a cat and a knife. Ji-sung feared he might hurt the cat, but it turned out that Jungkook was just trying to cut the rope that the cat was tangled in. Just then, Oh-jung arrived, but he had to leave quickly because he received a call that his son was in a fight. This left Ji-sung and Jungkook alone. After freeing the cat, they decided to take it to an animal hospital. There, they ran into Hari, who was there buying food for the cat. After visiting the vet, Ji-sung and Jungkook decided to grab dinner together. At the restaurant, the owner, who knew Jungkook, gave him a gift because Jungkook had once saved her life. The restaurant owner then asked Jungkook to read a message from her grandson, but it was in Russian, which Jungkook couldn't understand. Ji-sung used her cell phone to translate the message right there. She did this to show Jungkook how social media and technology could be helpful, hoping it would encourage him to use them more. Before they went their separate ways, Jungkook kindly offered his umbrella to Ji-sung because it was raining, and he planned to run home in the rain. This thoughtful act really touched Ji-sung. Meanwhile, back at the office, Wong was busy analyzing the chip inside Ultron. After the incident with Jae-gal earlier that day, she suspected that Jangu might be involved somehow. She decided to look into Jangu more thoroughly. The next day, when Ji-sung got to the office, she bumped into Jae-gal, who was clearing out his desk. It turned out Jae-gal had been fired from Pelican Electronic. There, Jae-gal confessed that he did own the Venus Forest website, but he insisted that he had never posted the false news or gossip about Ji-sung being pregnant out of wedlock. Before leaving, Jae-gal mentioned that the problems at the company wouldn't just go away with his firing. He believed that the root causes of the issues at the company were deep and wouldn't be resolved easily. Meanwhile, in Byung-gil's office, he announced to his staff that the company would be collaborating with the fire department to develop a thermal camera that uses AI technology. Shortly after this announcement, Jungkook and Oh Jung, representing the fire department, arrived to discuss the partnership. At that time, Byung-gil chose Ji-sung to manage this new project. In a different scene, we see Yesul visiting the dentist to check on a tooth issue. At the hospital, she meets a very handsome dentist named Eugene, who finds her quite beautiful. After her treatment, Eugene invited Yesul into his office, making her think he might say something romantic. However, he just wanted her permission to study her unique molar teeth, which disappointed her. The story then shifts back to Ji-sung, who was on the phone with her dad, catching up on family news. During the call, she heard noises from her bathroom window and went to check. To her shock, she found Chung-hun trying to climb in through the window. He got stuck because the window was too narrow. Despite being upset, Ji-sung, feeling a bit of sympathy, called the fire brigade to help get Chung-hun out since he was in pain and couldn't move. When the fire brigade arrived to help, it was Jungkook and Oh Jung who showed up. They had a tough time getting Chung-hun out of the window, so they had to take apart the window. During the rescue, Ji-sung and Chung-hun ended up arguing right in front of everyone. This situation let Jungkook and Oh Jung hear about the problems between them. At that time, Chung-hun kept apologizing to Ji-sung, but she was too upset to forgive him and told him she didn't want to see him anymore. After Chung-hun was sent away, Ji-sung was still emotional. She saw Jungkook returning to her apartment to secure her bathroom window. There, Jungkook joked that he would temporarily cover the window with a picture of Oh Jung and promised to come back the next day to properly fix it with a new one. In the car later, Jungkook asked Oh Jung to swap shifts with him because he wanted to personally replace Ji-sung's bathroom window the next day. Meanwhile, Ji-sung was shocked to see a young man giving flowers to her mother. She immediately expressed her disapproval of her mother's new relationship, worrying that the man was too young and might leave her mother. However, her mother reassured Ji-sung that her new boyfriend was a good man and wouldn't betray her. At a restaurant, Eugene and Yesul were having dinner together. During the meal, Yesul agreed to let Eugene check her unique molar teeth. Then, Yesul openly admitted that she didn't go to the hospital just for a dental checkup cause she actually went because she had a crush on Eugene. Eugene smiled at this revelation and asked Yesul out on a date, which really surprised her. He then confessed that he wasn't as great as she might think and mentioned he had some bad habits. But Yesul, totally smitten by his looks, didn't mind at all. Switching back to Ji-sung, when she got to her office, she was still curious about her mother's new boyfriend. She used Jangu to find out more about him. At that time, Ji-sung was surprised to learn that he was both wealthy and kind. While looking at his profile, Ji-sung received a message from Jungkook saying he was waiting outside her apartment. She quickly left for home, thinking he might have left since it was late. But when she got there, Ji-sung was touched to find Jungkook still waiting for her, even at that late hour. The story takes us back to Jungkook's high school days. One day, while he was reading a book, he noticed someone taking his photo. He approached the person to ask why they took the photo, but the kid just ran off. Later that day, outside of school, Jungkook saw the same kid laughing with his friends and showing them something on his cell phone. Jungkook felt sure they were laughing at his photo, and thinking they were making fun of him, he got really upset and ended up hitting the kid. Fast forward to the present, after Ji-sung arrived at her apartment, Jungkook started installing the new window in her bathroom. Ji-sung was there watching him work and took a photo of him. When Jungkook noticed he was being photographed secretly, he got angry and asked Ji-sung to delete the photo right away. At that moment Ji-sung saw how upset he was, so she quickly deleted the photo and looked really scared. After Jungkook left, Ji-sung was resting when she got a call from her mom. Her mom said she was thinking about breaking up with her new boyfriend because she really loves Ji-sung and wants to listen to her advice. Meanwhile, Ji-sung, who knew her mom's boyfriend was a good person, told her mom that he would truly love her. Surprised, her mom asked how Ji-sung knew so much about him. Ji-sung jokingly said that a fortune teller named Mr. Jangu had told her about him. Hearing this, her mom decided to rethink her decision to break up. Switching scenes, we learn that Tae-yoon has been married for 3 years but they haven't had any children. Tae-yoon and her husband regularly take herbal drinks hoping it will help them have a baby. One day, Kae-yoon was shocked to discover that her husband hadn't been drinking the potions she had been giving him. Meanwhile, Jisung's mom started telling all her friends about her daughter's friend, Mr. Jangu, who she claimed was a great fortune teller. Soon, many people started contacting Jisung, wanting their fortunes told. At the same time, Yesul, hearing about the fortune teller Jangu, asked Jisung for help to find out about her new boyfriend, Eugene, who she heard had some bad habits. This piqued Jisung's curiosity about Yesul's new relationship. Meanwhile, after being assigned to work with the fire department, Jisung went to the fire department office. There, she felt uneasy because Jungkook was being cold and unfriendly. During her visit, she participated in a firefighter training simulation and tested a thermal camera that they were developing. After the simulation, Jisung noticed something was missing in the recording, and since everyone else had already left, she asked Jungkook to help her reshoot, and he agreed. Outside in the parking lot, Oh-jung noticed the area was empty, thinking everyone had gone home. So, he locked the gate and left. Back inside, Jisung and Jungkook, who had just finished their reshoot, were shocked and panicked to find themselves locked in. There, Jisung tried to call for help, but her phone's battery was dead. At the same time, Jungkook's phone was left in his office, so neither could call anyone. In that moment, Jungkook tried to calm down a panicking Jisung. They attempted to escape through a back door, but couldn't climb the high wall. In the process, Jungkook accidentally fell into Jisung's lap. After a long search for a way out with no success, they realized they were stuck there for the night. During this time, Jisung apologized to Jungkook for secretly taking his photo. Hearing this, Jungkook said that he should be the one apologizing for overreacting about the photo. After forgiving each other, Jisung and Jungkook almost kissed, but they were interrupted by the sound of the door opening and it was Oh-jung coming back. Later, back at their offices, Jisung was happily watching the video she had recorded of Jungkook earlier. Jungkook also found himself smiling as he watched a video that Oh-jung had recorded of Jisung when she was drunk by the roadside. He felt even happier remembering when Jisung accidentally fell into his lap. As Jungkook was leaving work, he found Jisung waiting outside for him. They met up, and Jisung asked him out on a date, to which Jungkook happily agreed. Meanwhile, back at the office, Wang managed to unlock and activate Jangu using Jisung's voice and fingerprint. It turns out Wang is a secret agent from a counterterrorism unit. She had been at Pelican Electronic to search for a special chipset named JSS, originally developed to prevent terrorism but later misused for political purposes and thus disabled. For a long time, the location of the JSS chipset was unknown. Wang discovered a clue that JSS was at Pelican Electronic and was somehow reactivated by Jisung. Now, Wang suspects that Jisung might be a spy involved in terrorism. The next day, Pelican Electronic had a meeting with the fire department to make their partnership official. At the meeting, Jungkook ended up sitting next to Hari, and they looked so good together that people started thinking they were a couple. Seeing this, Jisung felt jealous. After the meeting, Jisung quickly asked Jungkook about their planned date. Realizing Jisung was upset and jealous, Jungkook reassured her that Hari meant nothing to him and promised they would go on their date the next day. This made Jisung feel happy again. Meanwhile, Jisung's ex-boyfriend, Chonghun, was watching them. He realized that Jungkook was the one who had answered Jisung's phone when he had called her from a hotel. Chonghun then asked to meet with Jisung. When they met, Chonghun apologized and pleaded with Jisung not to see Jungkook anymore. He even told her he had moved his clinic closer to her. Hearing that, Jisung got angry because she felt Chonghun was being too pushy by telling her to stay away from Jungkook. Before she walked away, Jisung firmly told him that Jungkook was her new boyfriend. After that, Jisung met with Hari, who surprisingly already knew about Mr. Jangu. Hari expressed her wish for Jangu to predict the future of her relationship with her boyfriend. Jisung was happy to hear Hari had a boyfriend and explained that Jangu was just her invention, but she was still willing to listen to Hari's concerns as a friend. Then, Hari shared that her boyfriend didn't like cats very much, which was hard for her because she loved cats. Hari also confessed she was unsure about her relationship. At that time, Jisung encouraged Hari to keep trying with her boyfriend and offered her support. Back at her desk, Jisung was shocked to find an article on her laptop warning her that someone was watching and that she needed to be careful with Jangu. She was even more startled to see Jangu activate by itself even though she had locked it, making her realize something strange was happening with Jangu. The next day, it was mentioned that Kae-yoon, who was trying to have a baby, planned to undergo a procedure to retrieve eggs. Unfortunately, her husband couldn't be there because he had to work. After the procedure, Kae-yoon fainted from the pain. Oh Jung, who was nearby getting a drink, saw her collapse and quickly took her to the nearest hospital. Since her husband couldn't be reached, Oh Jung told the hospital staff he was Kyoon's husband so she could receive immediate treatment. Meanwhile, Jisung and Jungkook were busy getting everything ready for their photo shoot day to make sure everything went smoothly. During the shoot, Jungkook wore a helmet because he didn't want his face to be seen by others. This was because he had a big fear of his face being exposed in the media. The photographer was disappointed because he couldn't capture Jungkook's handsome face. After the photo shoot, Jungkook was surprised to see a firefighter who used to work in Miradong, the place where he grew up. There, Jungkook shared that he had lived in Miradong as a child and had even changed his name since then. The firefighter mentioned that Jungkook had faced trauma in his past, and was impressed by how well Jungkook had turned out. People overheard their conversation and learned about the kid from Miradong who had gone missing long ago. There was a rumor from the past that Jungkook, the child from Miradong, had caused harm to others. Jisung overheard this and became very curious about his past, wanting to learn more about what had really happened. On the other side, Kyoon's husband was talking to Wang. It was clear that he was ignoring calls from Kyoon, focusing instead on his conversation with Wang. Wang mentioned they hadn't seen each other in a long time. It turns out Kyoon's husband is a secret agent known by the code name Winter Shoulder. Meanwhile, Wang, also a secret agent, is investigating something strange happening at the company where Jisung works. The next day, Jisung was still thinking about what the reporter had said about Jungkook's past. Even while they were on a date, she kept wondering about the real identity of Jungkook. During their meal, she received a message from Yesul saying that Kyoon was now in the hospital. Hearing this, Jisung and Jungkook quickly went to the hospital. At the hospital, Oh Jung was by Kyoon's side, who was very weak. Soon after, Yesul showed up, explaining that she had been looking for Eugene, who had vanished suddenly. This sudden disappearance was apparently a bad habit of Eugene's. At that time, Yesul, who was still puzzled by Eugene's unexplained disappearance, asked about Kyoon's husband. There, Kyoon explained that her husband was on duty. Just then, Jisung and Jungkook arrived, and everyone there began to see just how close they had become. At the hospital, Jisung ran into Hari who was there with her boyfriend treating a cat scratch on his hand. They chatted and got to know each other better. After a while, Jisung noticed Jungkook talking privately with Hari and, curious, she decided to listen in on their conversation from behind some flowers. During the conversation, Jisung heard Jungkook suggest that Hari should break up with her boyfriend. Suddenly, Hari's boyfriend grabbed her arm roughly. Seeing that, Jungkook reacted by pulling the boyfriend's hand away, but Hari defended her boyfriend and told Jungkook to let go. At that moment, Jungkook realized Jisung was hiding and had overheard everything. Caught eavesdropping, Jisung admitted to it and asked Jungkook why he thought Hari should break up with her boyfriend. Jungkook, however, said he couldn't explain his reasons to her. As days passed, Kyoon recovered well and was ready to go home. When her husband finally showed up after a week, Kyoon asked him where he had been. He mentioned an emergency at work had kept him away but didn't give a clear explanation, which made Kyoon suspect he was lying. Upset, she expressed her frustration about never feeling happy with him because he was always mysterious and put his job first. Their argument escalated until Oh Jung stepped in to calm things down. There, Kyoon told her husband how much Oh Jung had supported her, highlighting the care he had shown during her tough time. At work, Hari looked very pale and suddenly fainted, so she was rushed to the hospital. Not long after, Jungkook showed up at the hospital and asked Jisung to give him and Hari some privacy. Hari then broke down crying in front of Jungkook. Meanwhile, Jisung was really curious about Hari's boyfriend. She used Jangu to dig up some information on him and discovered that Hari's boyfriend is a high school teacher known for having a bad temper. The information also suggested that he might be abusive towards women. Jisung realized that Hari's illness that day might have been caused by violence from her boyfriend. Jisung finally understood why Jungkook had previously suggested Hari break up with her boyfriend. Later, Jungkook explained to Jisung that Hari wanted to keep her troubles private, which was why he hadn't shared the details with Jisung before. Jisung felt hurt, feeling like she was just an outsider to Jungkook. Then, she confronted him, asking what she really meant to him, expressing that she felt like she had been trying to connect with him but never truly reached him. After sharing her feelings, Jisung walked away from Jungkook. Meanwhile, Kyoon's husband was having a meeting with Wang. They were discussing the JSS chip, and Kyoon secretly followed her husband to overhear the conversation. On a different note, Hari was feeling better both physically and emotionally, and was ready to get back to her work with a positive attitude. There, Jisung offered to go with her, but Hari wanted to go by herself. Around the same time, Hari's boyfriend called the company to check on her. Dongjin told him that Hari was busy working. Her boyfriend tried to call her directly, but her phone was off. Then, he pretended to be a courier to get Hari's work location from her company. At that time, Jisung overheard this conversation. She tried calling Hari's number again and realized that the number was actually the high school where Hari's boyfriend worked. Understanding that he might be heading to meet Hari, Jisung quickly called Jungkook to tell him what was happening. Soon after, they hurried to the location. Jisung kept trying to reach Hari, but her phone was still off, so she decided to call the police for help. After Hari finished work, she found her boyfriend waiting for her. He quickly took her to a secluded spot to talk. He tried to apologize, but Hari wouldn't accept it, which made him angry and caused Hari to scream hysterically. Jisung and Jungkook, who had just arrived, heard her scream and ran towards the noise. They got there just in time, and soon after, the police arrived and arrested Hari's boyfriend. In the evening, after everything settled down, Hari went to stay at her brother's house. On their way home, Jisung and Jungkook's car broke down, so they had to walk to the nearest bus stop. At the bus stop, as Jisung nearly stumbled because of an insect, Jungkook caught her, and they ended up kissing, caught up in the moment and missing the last bus. Meanwhile, Yesul finally found Eugene again and, without holding back, slapped him. Right after slapping him, she asked him to marry her. Elsewhere, Kaeyoon had a drink with Oh-jung and shared that she was planning to divorce her husband. Since helping Hari and using the Jangu technology, Jisung has been inspired to help others. She uses Jangu's capabilities to uncover secrets and solve problems for various couples, effectively using technology to aid in personal matters. The next day, Jisung and Jungkook officially started dating and were very romantic, even showing affection publicly just 1 month into their relationship. The following day, Jisung was working on a smartwatch with artificial intelligence that could detect emergencies and automatically call a preset number. At that time, Jisung set her watch to call Jungkook in case of an emergency, and he did the same with his watch set to call her. This way, they could always be aware of each other's safety. Then, Jisung shared stories from her childhood with Jungkook, telling him about the championships she had won and even showing him a childhood photo. She asked Jungkook for a childhood photo of his own, but he was unable to show one at that moment and promised to share it someday. Later, when Jisung met up with Yesul and she announced she was going to marry Eugene soon. Yesul invited all her friends to a small party where she planned to distribute wedding invitations to her closest friends. At that time, Jisung was shocked to hear that Yesul was planning to marry a man she had only been dating for a month. Curious, Jisung decided to look up Eugene using Jangu. Luckily, all the information about him turned out to be positive, confirming that he was indeed a good person. At that time, Wang asked Jisung to stop using the Jangu program. Wang had been okay with Jisung using Jangu because she knew Jisung wasn't using it for personal gain. However, Wang now worried that other people might target Jisung just to access the intelligence capabilities of Jangu, so she advised Jisung to stop using it for her own safety. Before Yesul's party, she met with Eugene's parents. There, Eugene's mom expressed her concerns about Yesul marrying her son, who had a habit of disappearing suddenly, which was a trait he inherited from his father. But there, Yesul reassured her that she was okay with it. The party then started at Eugene's house, with everyone arriving as couples. The atmosphere was initially cheerful, but soon everyone became lost in their own thoughts. At that time, Jisung was thinking about Wang's warning, Yesul was worried about Eugene's tendency to vanish, and Kaeyoon was troubled by her husband's mysterious behavior. As the party was winding down, Chonghun approached Jisung in a drunken state and mentioned that Jungkook was suddenly all over social media. During the previous day's photo shoot, even though Jungkook wore a helmet, the photographer secretly took his photo and posted it online, making him unexpectedly famous. Because of that, Jungkook left the party abruptly, and Jisung was puzzled why this newfound popularity bothered him. In another development, Kaeyoon's husband found out about her plans to divorce him. He didn't want to separate, explaining that his reluctance to have children was the issue. Kaeyoon left the gathering alone and ended up getting into Oh-jung's car, which Jisung witnessed. Curious about their relationship, Jisung decided to look up Oh-jung using Jangu. There, Jangu revealed that Oh-jung was a loyal husband. However, Jisung was shocked to discover that Oh-jung's friend, known as Jungkook, actually had a real name, and it was Jimin. This discovery made Jisung wonder why he had changed his name. Unbeknownst to her, her actions were being recorded by a hidden camera. Later, at her apartment, Jisung tried to contact Jungkook, but his phone was off. When Jungkook finally saw her message, he was unsure how to respond to her. The next day, After not hearing from Jungkook for several hours, Jisung finally received a reply. At that time, he invited her out to lunch. During the lunch, Jisung brought up how Jungkook had suddenly become a celebrity. However, he didn't want to talk about it and abruptly left the table. Outside, Oh-jung suggested to Jungkook that he should explain to Jisung why he changed his name. That evening, Jungkook visited Jisung at her apartment again. Right outside her apartment, Jungkook saved a small child from being hit by a car. In the process, he fell and slightly hurt his face. He cleaned up and borrowed some clothes from Jisung. During this time, they reconciled. Then, Jisung told him that no matter who he was, she didn't care. To her, Jungkook meant everything. Jungkook was moved by her words, and the moment felt very romantic. At night, Jungkook stayed over at Jisung's apartment. The next morning, he left for work while Jisung was still sleeping. Before leaving, he made breakfast for her and left a letter explaining why he changed his name. In the letter, Jungkook revealed that he left behind his real name because he felt he was weak and cowardly, feelings that persisted even now. However, he shared that meeting Jisung had significantly changed his life for the better. At the end of the letter, Jungkook expressed his deep love for Jisung. After reading the letter, Jisung felt deeply moved and happy. However, her happiness was short-lived. She was shocked by a news report claiming that Jungkook was the child from Miradong who had become famous across Korea. He was accused of being responsible for a firefighter's death, and this news quickly spread everywhere. At that time, Taeyoon and Yesul, unsettled by the news, asked Oh-jung for more details. There, Oh-jung explained that years ago in Miradong, there was a massive fire late one night. Jungkook's mother, who owned the building that caught fire, had just returned home and thought Jungkook was still inside, possibly asleep. In desperation, she pleaded with the firefighters to rescue him. Consequently, the fire department's team captain bravely entered the building to save Jungkook. However, at that moment, Jungkook was actually returning home from watching a football game and was not inside the building. Soon after the captain went in, a large explosion occurred. This tragic event led to the death of the firefighter captain, and people began to wrongly blame Jungkook and his mother for the captain's death, leading to widespread against them. Turns out, Jungkook was known as Miradong's son throughout his childhood and into high school because his mother ran a charcoal barbecue restaurant. There was a rumor that the firefighter captain who tried to save him from the fire had died, but actually, he survived, although he was critically injured. A few years after the incident, the captain went abroad for treatment and wasn't heard from again. As the story of Jungkook's past resurfaced and went viral, public opinion was divided. While some criticized him, many defended him. This attention led the firefighters from Miradong, including the captain, to come forward. The captain publicly stated that he was okay and confirmed that Jungkook and his mother were completely innocent. Then, Jungkook, together with Jisung, went to visit the memorial for fallen firefighters, where they met the captain. There, Jungkook tearfully apologized, and the captain reassured him, sharing that he often dreamt about the incident but firmly stated that Jungkook was innocent. The captain reflected on how much worse it would have been if Jungkook had actually been in the building and not saved. After their emotional visit, Jisung and Jungkook headed home. On the way, Jungkook received a message with a link. When he opened it, he found a video showing Jisung using Jangu to access other people's personal data. There, Jisung tried to explain to Jungkook that she hadn't meant any harm by using Jangu, but she couldn't find the right words, and Jungkook was too upset to believe her. He told her he didn't want to be with someone who revealed other people's secrets and left her feeling disappointed. Later, Jisung checked the Pine Forest social media account and was shocked to see it full of gossip that she recognized from her questions to Jangu. She was certain that the person behind Pine Forest must have gotten the information from Jangu. The next day, Jisung decided to find out who had recorded her. She suspected her co-worker Wang might be involved. While she was checking Wang's laptop for clues, intelligence officers suddenly showed up and took her to the National Intelligence Agency. News of her arrest quickly spread online. On her way there, Jisung received a threatening message from someone anonymous, warning her not to talk about the recordings. The message also threatened to release a video of her, recorded by Chung Hunt via CCTV without her clothes on, if she spoke up. At the interrogation room, Jisung was surprised to see Taeyoon's husband show up. He explained that the JSS chipset, which Jisung had used to track information, was connected to his computer. He knew about her use of the chipset to gather personal data. There, Taeyoon warned her that using the chipset for personal gain was illegal and could lead to a long prison sentence. After being released from the National Intelligence Agency, Jisung came home to find Jungkook waiting for her at her apartment. And Jungkook, very concerned, hugged her right away. Meanwhile, Ji-sung, still being monitored by the National Intelligence Agency, didn't want Jungkook to get caught up in her troubles. She worried that if the agency knew Jungkook was her boyfriend, it might cause problems for him. With a heavy heart, Ji-sung decided it was best for them to break up, and she told Jungkook they should end their relationship. Ji-sung then went into her apartment alone. Inside, she was shocked to find her place a mess and her co-worker, Youngwon, waiting for her. At that time, Youngwon took her captive in her own home. There, Youngwon threatened Ji-sung not to scream or he would hurt her. He confessed to being the one who had recorded her and posted all the gossip on the Venus Forest social media account. He explained that he was looking for the Jangu chipset in Ji-sung's apartment because without it, he couldn't get more information to share on Venus Forest. Youngwon wanted the chipset for his own use. During this tense moment, Ji-sung noticed the emergency watch she had made, which was connected to Jungkook. Outside the apartment, Taeyoon and Yesul, worried about Ji-sung, knocked on her door. When there was no response, they grew concerned that something was wrong inside. Inside the house, Youngwon approaches the door. At that time, Ji-sung seizes the moment to grab her watch. Unable to find the chipset Youngwon is searching for, he burns the room. In the chaos, Agent Wang enters through the window. There, Wang frees Ji-sung just as Youngwon strikes a match, igniting the fire. Wang tries to release Ji-sung as thick smoke fills the room, making it hard to breathe. Outside, Taeyoon and Yesul are shocked. As Ji-sung lies weak, Jungkook arrives and extinguishes the fire. He carries Ji-sung to safety. Jungkook then rushes back inside, believing Youngwon is still trapped. At that time, Ji-sung is worried, but more firefighters arrive, and they rescue Youngwon from the burning building. After coming back home, Taeyoon found her husband asleep in the living room. Looking at him, she remembered Oh Jung's words about how much her husband secretly liked kids but didn't show it. The next day, she asked him why he didn't want children. He explained that he loved her so much he didn't want to share his love with anyone else, not even their children. He assured her of his deep love and care. Hearing this, Taeyoon decided not to go through with divorcing him. One day, Taeyoon and her husband had a wedding party. During the celebration, we saw Jungkook and Ji-sung being very romantic. Even when Taeyoon threw the flowers, Jungkook and Ji-sung caught them. From then on, they promised to always take care of each other and stay together forever. After a few days, Ji-sung quit her job at Pelican Electronic and started looking for a new one. During that time, she got an email from Wang offering her a job to do a mission, which she happily accepted. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is sometimes, secret agents make the best relationship counselors, and always check your gadgets for hidden cameras before spilling the tea.